everyone. Is that better? I'm a little tall. I always have to raise these, which really is exactly where I want to start. I am so tech challenged. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for my good friend Becky you just met, as you heard, I wouldn't have even been able to read the Twitter message last year that told me about the small town conference in Hutchinson, Kansas. So I do rely on her to teach me everything I need to know about all the social media. My son Josh, on the other hand, is a serious math, science, tech geek. From the time he was 4 or 5 years old, he's been helping me run the VCR, the computer. By the time he was a teenager, if I wanted to talk to him, I had to learn how to text. April 2010, my only experience with Facebook and Twitter was what Becky had taught me, and that my new job at the time expected me to get on those so that I could connect with clients. That's how they kept up with them, worked with them, of course always email. So I did create pages the way Becky taught me, had my pages, used them a little bit, but wasn't good at any of this. But in that time, life drastically changed. Josh was a junior in high school, normal, active, did I say busy? Very busy. My husband Ken had just been activated with his Air Force Reserve Unit and was sent to Guam and was serving from there. April 15th started out as a very normal day in our life. I had an evening work event. Josh headed off to school. After school, Josh and his church youth group were headed to Oklahoma City for a concert that his group had been planning for months. We lived 2.5 hours northwest of Oklahoma City in a little town called Cherokee. So it was a bit of a drive. They were leaving a little early. They got off just fine, headed to Oklahoma City, and I am told Josh was having a ball at the Rock and Worship Roadshow. But about 8 p.m., as he was dancing along to Family Force 5's Earthquake, he dropped in cardiac arrest to the floor. Thankfully, his story doesn't end there. A nurse just happened to be walking by and started CPR on Josh. Very quickly, a paramedic who was on staff at the Ford Center was called to his side as well, and she administered an AED. And after several shocks, the nurse and the paramedic were able to get a heart rhythm back to my son. An ambulance that had already been called to another emergency was diverted to him and got him quickly to a hospital. This brings me to how social technology impacted his survival and his recovery. If you're from a small town, you know how fast news travels. Right, wrong, partially right, it travels. By the time I reached Josh's side and the doctors were filling me in on what had happened, what might be wrong, what caused it, our phones, mine and Josh's, were beeping, buzzing. Everything they could was going off on them. And I quickly realized that everybody wanted to know what had happened. Messages were being posted on Facebook, Twitter, email. And I was so worried that somebody was going to Facebook or Twitter something that my husband would see in Guam, and he would see something before I had a chance to tell him what had happened to our son. So I quickly got on our phones, and by this time, like I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I hadn't even loaded Facebook mobile to my phone, so I had to use my son's. And I saw that his friends, most of them had thought he was dead. They didn't even know he was still alive. So I posted, hacked into his messages, and told his friends that he was still alive, that he was okay, that we were working on helping him. Of course, after I got a hold of my husband and told him what the situation was. By day 3 of what I began calling Josh's dance, when we took out the ventilator and the NG tubes, but still before he woke up, I sent a picture I snapped with my phone of him resting peacefully to our friends just to show that he had made some progress. The response was amazing. All the friends, hundreds of messages coming in on Facebook, Twitter, and through texting, every way possible. It became where I could not keep up unless I just posted single messages through these things so that they could hear and see what was happening with him. Again, when he regained conscious a few days later and my husband arrived, it all began over again because he wasn't as well as they thought he was. It wasn't just his heart. We realized quickly that his brain had also been impacted. He couldn't walk. His hands didn't work. His feet didn't work. His speech and his mental capacity were way under level at that time. So again, mass messaging, texting, everything to let our friends know, please pray for Josh. Please keep him in your thoughts. So another time of mass messaging. Even friends from Germany had seen our Facebook messaging and called us to check on Josh and kept in touch. A week into it, day 7 of what I called Josh's dance, we had one of our first social technology miracles where my friend, who I had let know, Facebooked that she was praying for her friend Josh, asking all her friends to pray for her friend Josh. And quickly, one of those friends called me. My friend had given the number out. But you see, it was her daughter-in-law who had started CPR on my son at the Ford Center in Oklahoma. So we found this person who had just walked away after saving my son's life. And a short time later, she and her husband came and visited him, and he got to meet the first people who responded and saved his life. In the same kind of ways, we met the paramedic who also administered the AED, and the emergency crew who drove the ambulance. They also kept in touch, and we still, to this day, all these people, we Twitter, Facebook, or somehow keep in touch with. Another big social technology miracle that we had fun with was when the rehab center, Bethany's Children's Center, suggested my son for the Oklahoma news channels 4 and 9 for news stories, and they ran great stories on his cardiac arrest, survival, and the heart disease he was diagnosed with. We made contacts from that, people who were at the concert and saw what happened and thought he had died. One of the people posted, "I've seen the dead rise," and made contact with us. Like Jeff, I'm a little suspicious, so we investigated carefully before friending them, but eventually found out that, of course, on Twitter, we had mutual friends. And so again, more technology, more connections. His rehab, by using his phone, was another way that we noticed he could use his phone, and that's how we judged he was getting better. From the Ford Center guards who ran to his rescue and called the paramedic who used the AED, to people who randomly dropped gifts off that somehow either prayed for him or knew something about his story, to his own church youth group who posted a presentation called What Josh Girty Meant to Me as part of their own healing and grief process on Facebook. I can talk to you for hours about how miracles of technology, especially social technology, saved my son's life and impacted his recovery. But instead, I will just end and tell you that last May, my son graduated from high school with honors with his class, and last August was able to start the college of his dreams, Oklahoma Baptist University, and proudly attends there. Amazes every day his family, his friends, and continues to amaze us all. Thank you all.